What a day. Let's go through the basics to start. S&P 4210, we've talked about this level. We are just unable to get above here. We're going to talk about what is going to actually get us over this level and what we need to focus on. We're going to talk about the NASDAQ, how we're breaking out and why this is important. What earnings came out tonight that could move the market tomorrow. We had another semiconductor company come out and absolutely crush. We're going to be talking about this 13,742 level and why it's so important. We're going to discuss the SOXX, why we could come out here and retest these March highs. I think it's really important for us to note that we hit a new 52-week high. It's really important for us to discuss this in detail and why we can push and go higher. We are also seeing strength in other areas that people are not expecting. We're seeing strength in retail. We're going to discuss why and what exactly is happening here as ELF closes at an all-time high on some of the greatest volume the stock has ever had in its history. We're going to discuss why ULTA is down precipitously after hours. That's also in that space. This is going to be something we're going to have to pay attention to. We're down about 55 points after hours. MRVL, why that is up and why we have to pay attention to it and how it is affecting other semiconductor stocks after hours. Let's get to it. Okay guys, I'm playing with the mic a little bit tonight, so just let me know how it's going. Might be a little louder than usual. If that's the case, just turn me down. Let me know if I got rid of some of that reverb. I'm at a new location and that's why, but I am working on it and I am aware of it. Thank you for your patience. As always, subscribe to the channel, click all notifications if what you are interested in is timely information that is actionable the next day. I'm going to give a no-nonsense approach to what's happening. So here we are, and we can see our key levels right here, right? So we're really watching that 4210, really 4206. It's in that area, right? And we're just unable to close above that. Now, is there any reason why that's going to change? Well, there's a couple reasons why it actually could change, right? And we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit and drill into a couple sectors that you're probably not used to paying attention to, but I think we should pay attention to them a little bit. So if we look at the ES and we look at the hourly, it really doesn't get any clearer on where our bottom is, okay? So if you're playing options and you're trying to trade, you're going to really want to watch this level. This is where you step up and you get involved, right? This is not where you panic. Let everybody else panic. Let retail panic, right? We don't want to trade like retail. We want to trade like traders. And then you can see how we are having issues over here. So we have this boxed in. Now, if we go through this and say, okay, well, is there anything else that would be a key level? Well, this level seems to be getting hit a lot, this 4178, and then we just kind of stop like a brick there, don't we? We even stopped on the debt ceiling news, and if you look in this area, you could actually say it's even lower where we have not been able to close above this 4173. So what I like to do with these levels, once I see this, let's clean this up, make life real simple, and I'm going to give you a really quick tip. So you see where you're at right here, and you see how you can't get over that level? What you do is you walk it down now until you find a level that you can actually see when was the last time you got over or where you hit other points of interest. Well, that's interesting. So what we've done there is we've defined the level a little bit clearer, right? Let me show you how we did that and why that's clear. Well, this is a more significant level than me looking at this wick. Why? Well, first and foremost, if I just very simply come here, click on this, and come across, you can see that we roughly stopped at the same place there. Then at the same time, you can see how it was a battleground here. It was a battleground here. Look how we fought that area here. So look at all these points of confluence, right, versus the other level that everybody else is watching. So now we know that if we close on the hourly above the ES at 4165, that is significant, and it is something that we have not done since we broke on this date, and that date is the 23rd. So if you're interested in the S&P, you're going to want to watch 4165, okay? Now, what's going to get us there? Now, we're all watching XLC, and XLC is your Google, your Meta, but XLC can't do it by itself. You're going to need more than one sector. Well, it decided today to finally start participating and acting like the leader that it is, and XLK is starting to break out, okay? So we are seeing XLK, and XLK is adding value. Apple, all is setting up here to start curling. You are still above your DTL. You need to pay attention to that. Downward trend line is DTL. Go through Microsoft, which we have in the Alpha Chasers community. If you are on the wait list, the invitations for certain people did start going out yesterday. The wait list to join the Alpha Chasers community is open for another 3 days, and then we'll go from there, and it will wind up closing for a period of time. So if you are interested in learning more and want to join the wait list, link in description. So here we are on Microsoft. We can see that break pretty clearly, right? Now you start going through this and going, okay, wow, I missed it. That was my favorite line from last night, and I'm going to teach everybody something tonight, hopefully. Well, teach or refresh. How about that, guys? 344. I don't see how you're not getting there. I really don't. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a straight line, but you have to start looking at some things here. If we open up our vol and we start looking right here and where we're sitting, look at our levels. Look at that vol. I mean, it's through the roof. You've not had a move like this since earnings, okay? And this is not even on their earnings. It's on what NVIDIA did, which we're going to address in a moment. So when we look at this and we zoom out, you're going to not buy this. I mean, there's your weekly. I mean, 1, 2, 3. This is a perfect HTF, high tight flag, boom, broke out, follow through bar. 344, in my opinion, is just, it's not an if, it's a when. And then what you have to understand is this gets really interesting, and it's not really where I wanted to go with this, but I should probably go over this because it's really fascinating, because this is what happens next. So you have this right here, right? So once you break this, you're going to form another pattern. That pattern that you're going to form, everyone can kind of see it, right? You're going to form a cup. And then what usually happens with breakouts? You break out, right? And then what happens? I don't like that one. Let's put this one back. You break out, right? And then after you break out, what happens? You come back down, right? And you usually retest. Now, when you come back down and you retest, okay, that forms what? That forms your handle. So now you're going to have a cup and handle right there. Now, this is conjecture, and you never know how this is going to play out, right? A myriad of things can happen. But my point that I'm getting at is this is how cups are formed. And then when you start forming the cup, the next thing that starts happening with these moves is then we start getting into the upper channels. Well, those upper channels are through the roof. I mean, these upper channels that we're setting up for, these become your target prices, retesting these channels. This stuff is really geared up for a significant move. I'm going to show you a couple others in a moment. So here we are on XLE, and what they're doing is they're slowly walking us down. But at the same time, and I'm using the weekly, I just want to review this. And there's so many names we have to go over. You're setting up to break, but then at the same time, we're not breaking. So the question is, are we going to break or are we not going to break? Well, if XLE stops going down, right, just devil's advocate for a second, and XLF stabilizes, okay? And let's be clear. There's nothing, I'm going to clean all this off. There's nothing stabilizing about this, right? This looks about as bad as you can get. Okay, this is your long bar down. This is your weekly flag right in here, right? You can all see it. I mean, you can actually even call it a pendant if you want, right? I mean, you can kind of see that yourself. So this is setting up for disaster. And frankly, if we close here, this is going to be the second worst weekly close that we've had in about 2 months, right? I mean, we're almost getting below this level. So this is not something that should make us feel warm and fuzzy. But as I say this, I think that there's some important things that are going on here. We're not really breaking. So what's happening is we seem to be getting down in this range over and over again since April, right, of last year, June of last year, actually. And then we're just not breaking. So if financials stop going down, energy stops going down, and then you start looking at basic materials, well, they look like they're rolling too, but are they? In other words, why are we getting the follow through? And then you go and take a look at Lin, which is 17% of the basic materials. Well, that just started rolling. So is that going to break? Because if that breaks, then we would have a great short, but it's not breaking, right? In other words, it's holding here. So the things that should be breaking are not breaking, which is stabilizing the index, right? So stabilization of the index can happen by sectors just not dropping and then other sectors going up. The problem becomes if other sectors are falling apart at the same time. Now, to get a better understanding, the number one sector that I always watch is utilities. And I'm going to put a caveat on this. I am watching this very closely because if utilities break, that usually means that the S&P is going to break, right? And we know what level we're going to watch, and we can see this here. So we can see this confluence, and we can see how we're wedged in this spot. Now, there's a couple things that we should talk about here. Number one, the blue line is the S&P. The orange line is energy. And you can see the peak right here and the peak here, right? So we can kind of see how this is playing out, and it's not exact. Then you can start seeing how these peaks all line up, and then you can start seeing a little bit of a divergence, which I'm sure you are seeing already, but let's just make it absolutely glaring so that you can see it. You see it there, and you see this here. So all of a sudden they're diverting. Now this usually means that we're heading lower on the index. Now, this is the reason why I'm not sure that it's the same correlation now. So this is the US 1 year, okay? And you can see we're at 5%. I could use the 1 month, but I'm going to use the 1 year. You annualize dividend yields. When people buy utilities, they're buying for income. Well, what if you can get the same dividend in a 1 year treasury? And then you start looking at the 1 year treasury and you start looking at the utilities. And what you're going to notice is once rates got to a certain point that was over the 2020 level, what happened? Right? So let's just take 220 pre-pandemic and come straight across and draw a big line so we can see it, right? So here's that line. Now, as soon as we started breaking above that 220, you see this area right here? Look at what started happening, right? So utilities started dropping. They try to get over, they can't. 1 year goes up. So I'm not sure that I want to use this so much as a correlation any longer, because it's very clear to me that as bonds went higher and as equities in the S&P went higher, we know the S&P is higher than it was a year ago, utilities dropped. And I think it has more to do with what's going on in the bond market and the alternative to buy that versus going out there and buying a dividend stock. Why take the risk of equities when you can just get backed by the Treasury? So to be clear, I am watching that, but I think we should get into some of the names because there's a ton of names to go over. AMD benefited greatly, obviously, from the NVIDIA news, and I think that there are a lot of things to go over here. The most important thing for me today was just watching the volume. How much volume did we get today? And you're pretty much well over top 5 on the year in the past 52 weeks. And that's really what you want to see. Okay, so this is a significant breakout on big volume. If you draw into this on the weekly, it's very hard not to be excited about this if you're in AMD. You can see the demand and you can see how we're pushing. I have said this and I'm going to say it again. If you have not listened to the NVIDIA conference call, I would strongly suggest that you do. Please make sure that you get the newsletter. I'm going to include links and quotes from the conference call in the newsletter, the free version. It should be out by tomorrow. I should be able to finish it this evening. It's really important that you understand what's going on with NVIDIA and the semiconductor space. This does not happen often. Okay? I would say that you see cycles like this once every year. So now if you take a look at how we're coming across right here, right? Pretty obvious we're going to get to 125. I mean, that's really our next target is 125. Now, I don't know when we're going to get there, but we did have some good news tonight. We had Marvel that had earnings, and they were fairly decent, and you're seeing the stock trade up after hours. I'm going to drill into this and just show you how it's been going. You can take a look at that, and I'll do it on a 5 so it's cleaner. As you just see, you're just basically forming what? You're forming a pendant. You're just setting up, right? I mean, you can see that pretty clearly. Actually, at the time of recording this, we're actually starting to break through the pendant. When you get to these little periods, you get a kill zone, and now you can see which way we're acting on that. So Marvel did well, raised guidance, things are good, everything's good, right? So that's what we want to see. And so you'll be able to see follow through on that, and that is adding a lot of value. AVGO up 50 and then up $10 tonight. So this is the type of stuff that we want to see happen. Now, surprisingly, Workday had a good quarter, and we've been seeing a lot of these software names, no matter how you look at them, how you want to quantify them. Snow is an absolute disaster. Workday was really good. Now, CRM should benefit from that tomorrow, and you're seeing CRM about $2, so that's something that we should be paying attention to. But this gets really interesting. ELF was one that we bought in the trading community today. Look at that volume. Look at the volume that came in, and I just want to show the significance of this volume. Okay. And I was watching this all day and trying to figure out the best time to get in, and it finally got to the point where there was just so much volume. The only way you can find anything is some date in February 19th, and then you have to go back to 2017 to even find anything remotely close. This is absolutely huge, and it cannot be overstated. So this is the kind of move when you see where you could start seeing this and people say, well, it's already gone parabolic. Now, this could have a massive, massive move. There are a lot of people that are going to want to get involved with this name based upon this chart and the earnings that they had, which were absolutely stellar, which brings us to ULTA. Just disclosure, I have a position in ELF, and after hours, I have a position in ULTA. And I'll show you where so that you can do it yourself, and you can figure out how to do this for yourself. So for me, this was very simple, and I'll just walk you through this and what I did and go from there. So here's your break. So we already know where our level is, worst case right there, right? We definitely don't want to go lower than that. Down, down, down. This is at 9 EMA. Right here, I have a gap in the chart. So I literally gap in the chart. That means there are no sellers. Because if there were sellers, the price would go there, right? It would be in that area if there were sellers. There aren't any. So what does it do? It breaks up, closes above the 9, and it gaps up, okay? This is actually called a rising window. It's a candlestick pattern. Then you start going across, and you start to move. Guess what you get again? Another gap. So I actually think that this was not the best quarter, but I think 50 points down might be a little excessive. So I'm still in there, and we'll see how it goes, closing into 8, and then I'll make a decision. I had a nice trade on this today early on, and you'll see a lot of this kind of stuff early in the day. And let me pull this off, and I'll show you what I mean. So what you'll see later in the days, as these days go on, is you'll always see these retests, right? And that's really what you want to look for. You want to look for those retests, and when you see them, you can act on a chart. And so that's what I did today, because this was something that I really wanted to be in, but I didn't want to chase it. So you gap up off the open, and then here's your closing price. So what it did here was it came down, tested that closing price, rebounded, and then I wasn't able to get in here. So I just waited and hoped that it would come back down. If it didn't and I missed it. So right here is where we actually got involved in the community today. Let me do this on a 5 so it's cleaner. And what that did for us was that put us in a position where we could get in off of something here with like a $2 stop. And then it traded up, and you could have taken it if you wanted it, or you could have done whatever you wanted. Some people would sold right when we couldn't get above the open. So that's always another telltale sign when you're day trading. If you can't get above the open, you see that rejection right there, that gravestone? As soon as that happens, you're out. So I would not rule this out tomorrow, and that would be on my list. Again, in regards to NVIDIA, and I really want to hammer this point home, it's really important that people listen to that conference call and they read that earnings report. And there's a lot of people out there that are extremely negative about what happened today. And quite frankly, they just don't understand. They don't understand the economic cycle. They certainly don't understand the semiconductor cycles and what's exactly happening. And that is abundantly clear. And you'll hear that when you actually hear the CEO speak. CEO of NVIDIA is actually still the guy that founded the company. So I would not rule that out at all. And it's definitely something I'd be paying attention to. Now, the thing about the SOXX and this breakout and how we're reversing is this bar by itself right here, just this alone is an island reversal gap. Just that. That's all you need is one bar. Okay, so now you have it here, flipping a key level. So we just jumped right over it. Now we're at 460. We're bidding up again. Why? Because Marvel had good earnings. So that is going to drive us higher. And this is something we have to look at. So where are we going? We're probably going to 500. We're probably heading back to 500 with the amount of breadth that we're seeing. And the one thing I want to stress is I own this, and people have been trading it in the community, and I actually bought more last night. But I just want to go through this so people get it. Okay, this SOXL is breaking out and is set to break out. You're seeing the breakout right here. You're seeing a new 52-week high right here, okay? So I don't see any reason if we get to 500 that we're not getting to 22.25. What I would suggest is if you're uncomfortable with the risk of the individual names right now, this is something that gets very, very interesting. And I plan on just staying with it because I do think that we're going to get to that area.